this will do it for the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season, not only for the Cup Series, but for NASCAR in general, because we have a lot to talk about here on our final show, wrapping up everything that not only took place in the Cup Series, but also in the entire weekend at Phoenix, the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series. There was just a lot of action this weekend to wrap up the season for NASCAR. And of course, with me as always, CJ Radoon and Eric Smith. Eric, how was Phoenix?
It was good. Good weather, good racing. Well, good championship storylines, I should say. The racing could be debated, but yeah, it was a good weekend. Glad to be back at the track.
CJ, did you enjoy the racing on Sunday?
Yeah, the last couple laps were pretty good. Up until that point, it was a little bit of a head scratcher, but yeah, at the end, I was pleased. Put it that way.
Well, yeah, you had a lot to be pleased with. As CJ Radoon, it's interesting how this works. I mean, for like Eric, you're gonna have to sweep everybody next year. Because it's like, as it happened for me last year, CJ just swept everybody this year. It's weird. It's like, how is everybody sweeping everything? I mean, why isn't there a little sharing here and there? So, but CJ kicked ass this season. So congratulations, CJ. You were successful with your futures. You made $2,500 thanks to Kyle Larson, who, of course, was your top pick on your fantasy team. You rode Kyle Larson to 11 wins out of your 17 and won by about 1,400 points. As we said last week that Eric had a shot if he could finish like first and second, but you ended up first and second. So that pretty much put an end to that. And also, your preseason predictions, you were the only one to choose Kyle Larson. So the Kyle Larson fan club, CJ Radoon. How about that? And he still almost lost. So, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But he pulled it off. And really, that's what it's all about when it's your season. When everything is going your way and you are the best driver and you have the best team and you get the breaks at the right minute. Doesn't always work out that way. In every sport, there's a lot of bests that don't get the break at the end, but it all came through for Kyle Larson. And what a story too for a guy who was suspended last year for racism.
It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know why a lot of folks didn't give him a lot of credit early on before the season started. Like sitting away from the sport was going to be some kind of detrimental thing for him for a season. But he didn't just step away from the sport. He was extremely active and he was extremely successful when he was active. And then when he comes back, arguably at the top of his game, you put him in one of the best teams on the grid. And you got to expect success from that. He delivered. Almost lost it. I thought for sure it was going to be Eric's heyday with Truex coming through. But then that pit stop at the end truly proves that this is a team sport and you can't win it without having the best team as well. And his team has got him in contention. Then after that, it was up to him to nail the restart, which he did.
Well, the thing, I mean, look, we talked a lot. We broke down, okay, especially with Denny Hamlin and Denny. We did the same thing with Kyle Larson. Could Kyle Larson handle the pressure? So we said the same thing about Denny Hamlin. Was he going to choke? Because we kind of felt that was the case last year. But Denny Hamlin did not choke this year. Denny Hamlin did not get luck on his side this year, Eric, because, I mean, wow. You talk about if Anthony Alfredo does not pull out the caution at the time that he pulls it out, with Martin Truex sitting there in the pits, putting Truex first, exactly when the first time Denny Hamlin's crew puts him out first, which means he would have been first. But instead he was second. And then the last caution, because of where he was situated after that caution, his pit crew barely gets him out first. Kyle Larson barely beats Denny Hamlin out, meaning if Denny Hamlin would have, if Truex was never in that situation and Denny Hamlin would have came out of the pits first and started first, and that last caution would have come out, and Denny Hamlin would have come into those pits, he would have came out first. But that's what it all screwed up because of Martin Truex Jr. on pit road when the caution came out.
Yep. The cautions at the end hurt him. And he mentioned it, and I'm like, is he right about that? Because he kept saying Larson was probably the third or fourth best car of the championship 4. And Larson and Cliff Daniels admitted that. Like, oh, yeah, we were trash. We didn't have it. We just had a good – Cliff Daniels, which we'll get into probably, it made a lot of sense when he said that and how he went back and learned Larson from the dirt and what makes it tick and what makes the setups work. But he said we chased the car all day, and we just had one good pit stop that put us in the lead because that went back to qualifying because we had the number 1 pit stall. And that's what helped us get the lead because Hamlin, if you remember right, was third. He just passed Chase Elliott. And he was coming. It was right. Elliott was leading because he passed Larson, and then Hamlin got by Larson, and Elliott wasn't much farther up, and Hamlin was coming. Hamlin was going to get him. The Gibbs cars had the better long-run cars than Hendrick, and it wasn't even close. And it was only a matter of time, probably a handful of laps, and he would have passed Chase Elliott for the lead. It was coming. And then that caution comes, and that just flipped the script on everything. And as you said, Truex was in the lead because he was on pit road. He got lucky. Caution came out at the perfect timing, didn't fall down a lap. Exited, was going to take over the lead, and the restarts, clearly the top lane had the advantage. There was nothing Hamlin could have done. Of course you're going to restart on the front row. Why would you restart behind your teammate? And because you wanted the clean air. So Truex beat him off the line. Hamlin didn't have a great car on short run.
Yeah, I don't think he would have. He would have been the same situation as Truex. He never would have caught Kyle Larson.
Yep.
He didn't have enough time.
Nope. And then as they get going, there he is. He was going to get Truex again, and another caution comes out. And it was just where his pit stall was, which is on the old front straightaway. And then you throw in Larson being first pit stall. That's a huge advantage. People don't realize that. And Larson had the second fastest pit stop of the entire season. He's in the lead. And I made that comment, is you got the 2 best cars all year restarting on the front row in the final restart of a race. The guy with the fastest car all season just had it right, track clean air at the right time. And like Hamlin said, the clean air, what helped the Hendrick car, bad handling car, just negate that. And all he had was 24 laps to the finish. And
did they feel like they had extra help because of the fender?
Oh, yeah. They all said that. They were all joking around. Yeah, Elliott even said it, and Truex, and he's like, yep, it was just the perfect storm of all the time and all the places for the damage. It's on the perfect spot. Because that's kind of what they say in pit stops, that no-go. Like, you're not supposed to pull that out because it gives you an advantage. Well, it's not a penalty when somebody else runs into you, and why would the team fix it? It's an aero advantage. And so it all lined up for Kyle Larson. And it's another one, because I thought then on the restart, I'm like, man, Hamlin choked it away again. You're starting on the front row in the final restart, and you can't get it done. You have the better car, and you can't get it done. But then after talking to him, like, he's right. He didn't choke it away. Just that top line was the best. And then Larson had the clean air. Hamlin faded. Elliott ended up getting by him, and then he came back. It's just there wasn't enough time.
Yeah, if there was another 5 or 10 laps, Truex is going to pass Larson. And if there's another maybe 20 laps, maybe Hamlin passes Truex.
Yep. And rightfully so, too, with them setting their cars up for the long run pace, because last year, which we talked about last week, the whole final stage was green. We didn't get any cautions in the whole final stage. And you got to think that this was a pretty clean race other than some tires issues that causing people to wreck. It was setting up that you could have a long green flag run to the finish. I mean, even the spring race was 25 laps to the finish. There wasn't all these cautions at the end. So they did it right. It was the winning move. It just Anthony Alfredo, another back marker, bringing out a caution, which completely changed the whole thing around.
Yeah. And,
but hey, I'm glad it did. It made it a good, fun finish. It gave the crowd what they wanted at the end.
The only thing with the track, though, is that the way it was setting up, it's just, this can't be the type of racetrack that decides a championship. because
Yep.
again, and I don't mind too much that you have one lane is faster than the other on a restart, because let's just be honest. I mean, just a few years ago, we never had dual lanes. It was just one lane, and so we gave the other opportunity. It was an opportunity. So you get an opportunity. So if you're not equal, well, whatever. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not first anyway. You shouldn't be equal. But it still would be better if there was some sort of shot for that other, whoever was lining up second. And then just to have the way the setup was, to have it, the championship decided the way it was by a caution because of the way the racetrack is. It's just, you just want another racetrack where if this happens and you have 20 laps to go, you can make that up somehow if you have the better car. And I just don't like that. I don't like that the championship can be decided with a racetrack that to me is just, it's just not a championship racetrack.
I think it's got to be a 750 track because otherwise you're going to put it into one of those drafting situations that we've complained about those races pretty much all season. Giving them the extra horsepower puts it more in the driver's hand. But to your point, the track, Phoenix, and its layout kind of takes it out of the driver's hand at the same time. So they've got the right rules package for the finale. I think now they just need to find the right track. And that's, again, is a reason why we always say they need to continue rotating it. But please don't put it at a 550 track. That would be a disaster.
Well, what would you suggest then?
Gosh. Well, you know what I'd really like to see is Fontana or Michigan with the 750 package, because there's enough space on those tracks that you can pick different lines. And then if you put the high horsepower onto the drivers, that gives them the opportunity to have more of a fair fight toward the end rather than just trying to get stuck into the draft with the 550 package.
Where would you want it, Eric? Championship race?
Selfishly, I think the two best, and it won't happen, is Darlington would be a good one because the package is changing again next year with the new car. Right. It's all going to be the same horsepower other than the super speedways. But Darlington is a driver's track. It's going to put it, even if the final restart, you can lean on each other. It's big enough. Because you got to think, too, it's going to be on a NASCAR sanctioned track. SMI, who owns Vegas, yeah, I could see where you'd want to in there, but that's not going to happen because SMI owns it. And NASCAR will never give up a championship race to, it's weird to say rival track promoters when they are in the same umbrella, but you're not going to give that up. So you got to think of that, or formerly ISC tracks. Daytona and Talladega, you can't do it because those are super speedways. That's not a fair race.
It's not going to happen there, no.
A lottery, no.
Even I don't think it should happen there, so no.
No, that can't happen. Homestead, I'd like to have a rotation of Homestead, Phoenix with the atmosphere, and you can change it up a little bit. Martinsville would be ideal. What we saw a couple Sundays ago on Halloween with all the tempers flaring. Yeah. I just don't know in Virginia, do you risk it in November in Virginia? I mean, because the key of wanting it in Phoenix is the weather aspect. You don't have to worry about it. You don't want the final race to get rained out till Monday. You want to end during that time slot. So I don't know if Martinsville allows you to guarantee that you're going to end the race on a Sunday. But I think Martinsville is the best track because you can knock somebody out of the way if you're faster. Because I think Hamlin, if I was Hamlin, sorry, Kyle, I'm going to apologize later. I've got the better car. I'm going to slide you up the track if you think you're going to restart like that. But other than that, like CJ, I like to see what Fontana holds when they convert that to a short track. We'll see because it's supposed to look like Martinsville.
When is that happening?
So after next season.
Oh, 2023.
Yep.
Well, maybe they should open it up with the championship race in 2023.
I think you might see it get flexed into a playoff race once this gets going. I think they're going to want to see what a race is like. Yeah. But I would like to see a rotation of Phoenix, Martinsville, Fontana, if it works, and Homestead. I think those are your four best options, and you just rotate them, which makes a bigger emphasis on the race because let's just say, for the sake of it, Kyle Larson, again, wasn't good at Phoenix. He just I think if you take him out of the championship 4, I don't even know if he's a top 5 car. They were that far off. Is it fair to end the season at a track that somebody's not good at every year?
No.
Just
no,
like Kevin
that's the
Harvick's
case
not
as
good at
well.
Martinsville.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to rotate it around.
Oh, absolutely. I have to rotate, no question.
So those are the 4 tracks I think would be the easiest. You got climate. I mean, Fontana, I don't think you're going to have to worry about weather. Homestead, generally, I mean, we dodged the bullet for a couple of decades that they never got rained out till another day in the finale. And then Martinsville is just, what you're getting into going into there that week, and you just add some additional time. But, yeah, I think that rotation of those 4 tracks would help. Martinsville would provide the most drama. But, yeah, that's what it needs. And plus, I'd rather a new format. I don't like the winner-take-all format. I just don't. I'd rather see some points involved. It just seemed awkward that I'm covering a race, the race is over, and it's like I don't care about the the non-championship 4 drivers because it's not a storyline. Nobody cares. And your boy Blaney right there in 5th, the best guy other than I think Blaney would have probably finished a little higher if he wasn't just staying out of the way. Yeah. It just feels like the 2 separate races. It's 2 years in a row. Blaney's the afterthought guy that's sitting there that if he could ever get to the championship 4, he could have some damage done. But yeah, I like the atmosphere. I like how they created everything out there. It's a viable host. Could the racing have been better? Yeah. But the PJ1, I think we got to at least acknowledge that it's a good job of that with the resin, that it created that second lane. It just maybe that second lane was a little too good. So to me, can you maybe apply it for 2 lanes? If it worked the outside lane, can you make it work on the bottom lane and make it a little even? And we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's better than a snooze fest like it could have been on like a Kansas or something.
Oh yeah, nobody wants to go there or any of those tracks. What, CJ, top story of the year in NASCAR? Number 1.
Kyle Larson, period. He had just a monstrous season, sat out the year before, was extremely successful. All the reasons I said before, Kyle Larson, hands down, is the biggest story of the year. Just completely ran away with the wins. Fastest car all season, strongest team. It's the full package. That's that story of the season for me.
Are we surprised that there hasn't been any sort of chatter regarding Kyle Larson winning the championship, considering what happened last year? Or is that because it's NASCAR and not the NFL?
In terms of his suspension, probably because it's not the NFL. I'm not sure. I mean, it's a good question. I would have expected it all year. We got it right at the very beginning for a little bit, and then after that, it was gone. It was an afterthought after that. And he got a couple questions after he got out of the car on Sunday about being suspended this same time last year, whether he thought he'd be able to make it back. But to your point, after that initial awkward press conference we had at the very beginning, it wasn't a press conference, an interview, I guess.
That was pretty bad.
that he had to sit through. After that, it was done. Like nobody literally brought it up until after he got out of the car again on Sunday. So yeah, I think if it were a different sport, certainly would have been many more questions asked. But given the fact that it's NASCAR, very tightly controlled, they've got other fires that they've been putting out at the same time as the year has gone on.
Top story that does not involve Kyle Larson, Eric.
I'd say probably the parity. Probably just the difference of 17 different drivers, 16 or 17 different guys winning 36 races. You had the new teams. You had, I kind of put in a nutshell, just a new era. I just feel like we're going to a new era. They never did say whether that's a record. I don't think it is. So
yeah,
I don't think it's got to be close. But I kind of likened it to just a new era. You got a new car coming out next year, so this is the last car of this. The last time teams are building the cars, now they get it shipped in. Last pit stops of normal. I thought that was also ironic that a pit stop won a championship when next year the pit stops are going to look different again.
Are they going to look different again?
They got a single lug, so it's like an IndyCar pit stop. You're just going to pull in.
It's going to be fast.
Yeah, maybe not. It could be done fast if it wasn't for the fuel. I mean, you got to get all the fuel in.
And why is that a positive change?
I mean, yes. I guess it could be cheaper.
Gets rid of lug nut violation stupidity.
Yeah, all that the loose wheels, the lug nut penalty, like all it's gone. Yeah, exactly. I kind of like that factor. I would like to see them, since they're doing this, add like an air hose like IndyCar does instead of a jack. I mean, if you're going to go that, far with it, just go a little bit farther and air the car up and just have certain, like IndyCar has one guy per side and just take it off, tire on, and gone.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the pit stops will be a little bit different. So you got that's going to be different. The new car is going to be different. The numbers are going to be different on the car, the placement. You got all this parity. You got Brad Keselowski going to own his team. All this movement that I just feel like this was another end of an era because the schedule is going to be changing again. So I think the storyline, just in general, just kind of this was the end of an era. Okay. I feel like we're fully going. Because in the past, I mean, I wrote about this too last week, and it used to be Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch. Sharpie him in the championship four, and who's going to be the fourth. Now, it's wide open. I mean, I think Larson, you can pretty much say that moving forward, but Chase Elliott's coming. Ryan Blaney's getting better. You got Logano. You got a lot of movement on the NASCAR front. So I'd say my main thing would just be an end of an era. I feel like it's just continually shifting new as we move further, and I think 22 is kind of the kickstart of it'll not as many changes will be each year moving forward. I think this is the really big one.
Most frustrating moment of the season, CJ? I'm sure this is going to be hard to choose.
It is hard to choose. Here's one almost every week. And I'm going to lump a bunch of them in together with this, but I could single it down to one. I would say Denny Hamlin getting to victory lane. Obviously, he made it a couple of times, but not nearly as many times as he should have. If I need to narrow it down to one particular frustration, I would say him getting knocked out at the Indianapolis road course. I think he's got to be the most frustrated driver through the entire year, and even in the finale, as we talked about earlier when we opened the show, in terms of things not going his way. He did not get the wins that he had last year. Arguably, last year was a more successful season, but I think he was better this year than he was last year, and I think he was more prepared to win a championship than he was last year, and it's another year where he came up short. So for me, biggest frustration of the year, Denny Hamlin's lack of success.
All right, Eric?
I'd probably say just everything getting politicized in NASCAR. I just feel like
that's
I'm
really
glad
good.
Larson won because early in the year, like CJ said, to his point that was the question. Winning heals all, and they did a good job fixing that image because you don't want to have your champion getting talked about as, oh, he's a racist. Like they did a good job of showing that he's not a racist and he can win a championship, and we can talk about him, celebrate him winning the championship, but the whole Bubba Wallace thing, and then him winning, and that getting ugly, and then the "Let's Go Brandon" stuff, and it's like I feel bad. It's like they're trying to distance it, and it's like, does everything have to be political on either side? It's like and I was going to write it, I just ran out of time explaining the Brandon thing and how that kind of hurts him with it because people don't realize that a lot of people chanting it don't even realize that's a real guy. It's like he's losing sponsors because of it, because people are like, I don't know if I want to touch this. And the poor guy was running out of funding, makes that funny video, and he gets funding for the rest of the year. He wins a race and then becomes Let's Go Brandon. And people, it's like, can we avoid the political stuff? So it just seemed like everything all season, everything always tied in to political, and it's like, can we just focus on the racetrack and the racetrack only, and not I'd be glad if we can finally get to a season and can just focus on racing and storylines around racing and not politicize everything and try to cancel everybody for everything.
That's going to be up to the leaders at NASCAR. So because it's not going away. So because the leaders at NASCAR could have kind of just use this and it could have helped the driver out as a funny moment. Like, hey, okay, I see what they're going at, but that's not, Instead of, it's just they're so tightly wound and they don't want to say the wrong thing, and they're just so it's so political. And it's like, don't, because to me that's what I think happened. I mean, I think there was a way you could have handled it to make it, because if you handle it a certain way, I think it goes away. And you can still allow those people to do what they're because again, you're not going to control that, but at least it takes the pressure off the driver, and it takes maybe the pressure off the sponsors from feeling, hey, he's too combustible, I can't touch this guy. But NASCAR just kind of made it worse for him by just putting more pressure on him and making it more political, when that's the easiest way to get rid of the problem, is to just almost like accept it and act like it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, like what's frustrating was it's like they didn't even really acknowledge it until Steve Phelps did in the end of year press conference last Friday, I believe it was, when they didn't condone it. They're going to try to go after the trademark because people having the NASCAR logo with the "Let's Go Brandon" shirts, and I feel like by letting it stew for almost 2 months, it's got so much attention. There was a plane flying in a banner over the track saying "Let's Go Brandon." I saw for every probably 1 in 5 people had a "Let's Go Brandon" shirt or hat. There were banners outside motorhomes, and it's just like, you didn't have to go this far, because these people, they're saying this, but I guarantee if you ask, do you know who Brandon is? Nope. It's like, he's actually an underfunded Xfinity Series driver. Then you're hurting him by showing up with this shirt because you made it, unfortunately, like a political rally cry. It's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And NASCAR didn't jump ahead of it. Like, they should have told the guy's story and realized, like, look, if you see a college football game and you just look at videos on social media, that's being said everywhere. Everywhere. That chant is going, not the Brandon thing, but what they were saying is going on everywhere. I saw the World Series crowds were chanting it. And now, instead of allowing it to be that chant, which you can like, hey, look, we don't condone that, we're not part of that, you let it turn into the cleaner version. It seems like to me the censored version is "Let's Go Brandon."
Yeah.
And it's like that, and that's picked up everywhere. Even at like the Colts games here, people are chanting it with signs. It's like, go back. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying go back to the old term, like, but I'm just saying you let the old term become "Let's Go Brandon." And you never did anything to stop the snowball until the end. And it's already snowballed.
It's too late.
And the poor guy, is like, these sponsors are like, oh, you're Brandon? Oh, here's people don't know. He was going to race for RCR next year, Xfinity. Richard Childress Racing. They grew the operation to be aligned with Richard Childress Racing. The small mom and pop business race team was going to be with the bigger team. Guess what got axed because of this? The funding and the alliance. They had to distance themselves. So this poor guy is going to lose. It's like,
that's
NASCAR
again, that's NASCAR's fault, because right there, even before that happens, they have to step in somehow. They should know it's going to happen. They should hear the whispers it's going to happen and step in and save it somehow. I don't know how you do it, but you have to do it. You have to save it somehow. You talk to the sponsors. You say, okay, what could we do to make some sort of announcement? What could we do to change this, this code, and to get the pressure off this kid? And they didn't. And I feel bad.
The problem
it's not right.
Is I feel like their heads were in the same. Like, come on, you're in the South. I mean, we've all heard of it. Auburn, Alabama, Texas. Those chants were very loud. We'll just say FJB is what they were saying. We'll stand politically correct here. That was a craze in America at college sporting venues. It was going around. So when you're in Talladega, and I feel like the front stretch interview the driver is a little awkward anyways, when they can just pull into victory lane like always. If you kind of known this, you could have been ahead of this and just interviewed him in victory lane like you would have in the past and got rid, like, knowing that there's a potential this could happen, but they did it anyways. And then they hear the chants. Why did the producer not say, hey, let's just cut this short? Let's just we're going to interview him in victory lane anyways. Let's just wrap it up. To let it continue going. And then not only continue to let it going, it went viral the next morning and you just ignored it. It's just like, we're not going to touch that. And it spiraled. And again, it's just like, I felt like, look who wins the race that weekend in a rain-shortened race. It's Bubba Wallace. And it's like, you've let a better storyline moment get overshadowed by politicizing.
Just imagine if NASCAR had decided to hold a press conference and have Brandon sitting there, and all they do is talk about how they back him. He's a really good up and coming driver. This is what our sport is about. And if any sponsors were thinking of questioning their decision to go here, and that's by all your right, hey, there's hundreds of other sponsors out there that should think about sponsoring this kid because, but they did nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It's like asking your dad or your boss to help you. I mean, that's not what that's for. NASCAR should be helping the driver, and they're just, sorry, we're not touching you.
No, they did, and then they made the stance on Friday that if the shirts "Let's Go Brandon" had like they were going to try to like, hey, you need to take that off. It's got the NASCAR logo on it because you're not going to go up there. That person bought the shirt. They didn't create the shirt, so you can't go after them for copyright infringement. They just bought it. But, however, Matt DiBenedetto, who I don't know what he was trying to pull, is trying to get a ride, and I took a picture of it Sunday, a guest with him, and the guest wore a "Let's Go Brandon" shirt all weekend, but DiBenedetto was getting in his car for qualifying and was chanting "Let's go Brandon." So you got a driver that's like, come on, you've got to know for a guy that's fought for funding his whole career to, it's like, why would you not distance yourself from, like, what are you doing? That's like you're doubling down. And then Noah Gragson came out the other day and put LGB on his thing for "Let's Go Brandon. I stand with you." He said, it's like, oh my gosh, can we just end the because people are trying to cancel both of them. And it's like, these guys aren't bad guys. It's just, now the cancel culture is getting involved in NASCAR when it's like, can we just focus on racing? It just, they opened the cancel culture door and now you let them in. And unfortunately, everything these guys do or say is getting scrutinized. And it's like,
well, it started with Wallace.
We just focus on racing.
It started with Wallace, and it continued with that ridiculous press conference with Kyle Larson that you mentioned, CJ. And they're just bad at this. Every decision they have made has been wrong, and that's my ugly for the season. Is I just wish we can go through a season without focusing on outside the track stuff. They've got a few months off now, so we'll see.
Unfortunately, that's been the problem is time off. People usually do something stupid in these few months leading. So hopefully everybody's good. We've got some next gen testing this off season. Hopefully that stays the storyline and not anything outside of racing, and might have some headwind going to Daytona.
Best race of 2021, CJ.
Oh, tough question. I will say that my answer for what could change, Eric stole just then, so I'll have to think of something quickly. As far as best race goes, it's a great question.
And it could be your favorite race. Doesn't have to be what you think would be, the right, hey, yeah, everybody loved this race. But was there a moment, a race that you were like, I just love this finish. This was just awesome.
Well, I think Atlanta was exceptional for me. That track really has a lot of old character.
Which race?
My favorite, Atlanta.
No, which run?
Sorry, the first one.
Oh, the Ryan Blaney caught Larson.
Yeah. Yep, exactly right. So that track it's got a lot of character. It's the old surface. I think that is everything that this sport should be. It's hard racing. It harkens back to the days of that we reminisce about when there wasn't the knockout format, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's a true driver's track. My favorite Formula One tracks are those that haven't changed. over the years, the Monacos, the Spas, Belgium, Monza, those types of tracks. Same thing for IndyCar. I think the more that NASCAR can go back to its roots at tracks like Atlanta, let that character come through rather than having it be so pristine, molded, and carefully looked out after, like the NASCAR reputation, exactly like what we just talked about from the politicization of it. I think the more you let those roots come and show, the better racing that you get, the more entertainment that you get. And certainly we had one of the best drivers who didn't get nearly the amount of credit that he should have this year, at least in terms of success, but probably from notoriety as well. Ryan Blaney ended up winning that race.
And it was interesting too, because what was fun about that race is that the analysts are kind of just talking for like like 20 minutes, like, hey, we got to fill up time. This is just, how much longer before this thing is going to be over. And then they look up, and if you're not paying attention, which I was, and I'm sure maybe you guys are, and you're looking at the times, you're realizing kind of getting closer. Is that on purpose? Yeah. Is Larson slowing down? You never know. And then all of a sudden, it was like, then once they noticed, it went pretty fast.
That's what made it so good, is that when you have that character that comes through, you put it in the driver's hands. You take it out of this kind of manicured environment, and you let the sport actually truly play out. And that's what this is. It's a sport, and you're looking for the best to go up against the best. And there are a lot of factors that go into it every single day. The commentators, absolutely terrible. They completely blew it. But the race itself, the track created it, the drivers created it, the teams created it. That's what I wish every week of NASCAR could be.
And by the way, speaking of the analysts, when Truex, I was getting confused as usual, because when the caution came out with Truex, it's like the very first thought out of their minds was, oh, this is going to just be terrible for Martin Truex. and then they kind of slowly started to kind of change it a little bit, but then the last thing they said, I forget who it was, said, well, this is the best worst thing that could have happened to Martin Truex. Then about 5 minutes later, I see Truex is leading the race, and I'm like, how is that the best worst thing for Martin? That is the best thing for Martin Truex. What are you talking about? So I don't know how I understand if it's somebody that just doesn't pay attention, but how do you not know these things? It's your job. It's all you do every week. Shouldn't you be prepared that if a caution like that comes out, that you have a pretty good indication right away, even if it takes 30 seconds, hey, this is really good for Martin Truex Jr.?
I think they're more conditioned to the cycle as it goes through versus where somebody is specifically at the moment. So it played out perfectly. Like, the timing was too good for them to be able to pick up that it was a good thing. I think that's what it was. I think had Truex gotten out and been on track, and a couple of, maybe two more cars cycle through, or you're waiting for somebody else to come in or something, I think that's where they're conditioned to say automatically, like, oh, this is a good or this is a bad thing. But I think the timing was so precise and so much a perfect storm of situation and scenarios that it just went over their heads yet again.
Best race, Eric?
I group them into one. I'm going to say the cut races. I feel like those were like phenomenal drama. I mean, you had Daytona, the regular season finale from start to finish was really good. Bristol night race was awesome. The ending, the Larson catching, Harvick winning, Harvick blaming Elliott, that drama. I feel like that was a pretty good night race for Bristol from start to finish. The Roval, you had Harvick and Elliott again, Hamlin staying out leading. I feel like from start to finish with the varying strategies.
And by the way, the Roval now, would you consider the Roval the best road course setup? Not the one that you'd want to see.
Right now, yes, from this past season. But I think Road America, I want to give it another year. Road America, for like IndyCar, is the best. I want to see another Road America NASCAR race, see if they can figure that track out. But right now, that was the best road course race of the year, was the Roval this year. I think strategy, and they've kind of figured that track out with it being so difficult.
And you can get those reps
comers
too,
and goers,
just like what happened.
Yeah,
that can happen anytime.
Like the inside's exactly. It's like a street course, road course. It's because it's a road course, but the walls are right next to it. There is no margin for error. So that was a good race. Martinsville is phenomenal just because of all the drama at the end. So I'd say the cut races, to me, kind of embolden what NASCAR is trying to get. Is I thought finally for once they're all in a good spot. I feel like the for years we've had stinkers in there. Or
are they staying for next season?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are. The same spots. They're moving some of the races in there around, like Homestead's getting back in the playoffs. The round of 12 will have Talladega. Then
so Homestead is not going to be in the beginning of the season next year?
Nope. They're in the round of 8. So
okay.
they moved them. Yep. So you got Homestead, which is a driver's track. It's kind of like a newer Darlington.
Yeah, sure.
And then Martinsville. So I kind of like that. The two races, like the penultimate race of a round and the final race of the round, is actually going to be pretty good now. Talladega and then Roval, Homestead, and then Martinsville for your final 2 rounds. So okay. I feel like the schedule's finally coming around a bit. But, yeah, I'd say the cut races they provided the drama that we're after.
Worst race of the season. And there were many, DJ. The worst race that you can go, this is just awful. What am I doing here?
There's one that stands head and shoulders above all of the rest of them, and that's the Bristol Dirt Race. That was terrible. We had,
and they're coming back again.
Whoever was in front was going to win, and we had 5 total leaders across 250 laps. The favorites were knocked out within. Yeah. It was terrible. You couldn't see the heat races because of all the dust, and they couldn't even get the track to work. And
yeah, so what did they canceled the race, right? They shortened it? Was that what they did?
No, they ran the full. They had to do single file restarts.
Oh, single file restarts. Okay.
Yeah. They had to make adjustments, but oh my gosh, the whole weekend was crap. And then you get to the one time you can actually see through to see what the cars are doing. There's no dust, and it's the same car in front for 100 laps, and then it was over. Yeah, I was not a fan of the Bristol Dirt Race. That's
and on top of that, it takes away our Bristol race, one of our Bristol races. Does. It's like please, in 2023 they have got to go back to 2 Bristol races. Without the dirt. Eric, worst race of the year?
I was going to say that the worst in general was Knoxville Truck Dirt Race. Was the probably worst race known. Oh, I don't know if they even ran more than 5 laps without somebody wrecking each other. It was the worst race maybe in the history of NASCAR. That thing was terrible. It's just that track's made for sprint cars and midgets, not a NASCAR truck with a bunch of kids that don't know what they're doing. That was 1A, and Martinsville's 1B truck race. Just embarrassment for NASCAR. But Cup race has got to be Bristol Dirt. Coda in the rain was terrible. The Coca-Cola 600, where Larson was in his own, 300 plus to the 400 laps, won every stage. Like, yeah, those are some snooze fest. And I hope nobody from Kansas takes this wrong, but any race at Kansas is terrible. I can't stand that track.
So I was that's going to be a question. So I already know the answer to that. What's the worst track?
Kansas. By far. That and now Texas they ruined that track with the PJ1 that they put. It's that the only way to fix Texas is you've got to take all that asphalt back up and then redo it, because it's terrible. Texas with the PJ1, because for Indy cars it's a 1 groove racetrack. You cannot run in that because if they do, you spin and wreck. It's literally a 1 groove racetrack.
And they're not going to fix it.
I think they're eventually going to have to, because the crowd, NASCAR admitted the crowd was terrible and they weren't happy.
I remember that.
And they got the All-Star race now. So they took a race away and put the All-Star race there. And I know IndyCar, the sanction agreement's up at the end of this next season. I don't know if they're going to go back as long as the track's that way. And if they continue losing people going to the Cup race, that NASCAR weekend, they've already lost a weekend out of a points-paying race. I think they're going to have to make a decision, because, yeah, that track is
so they could
not good.
Fix it before next year.
Oh yeah, it's not before next year.
Oh, so it's going to be the same crap again next year.
Oh yeah, because they said now like, oh, we didn't apply any of the PJ1. It's a stain. Well, the stain is slick. There is nothing you can't rate that extra darkened spot in the corner. It's slick. It's like running on black ice is basically what it is. So it doesn't help. They ruined it. And then the turn 1 and 2 being so wide, it's just you can't do anything with it.
It shouldn't even go there then.
I think that's going to be because NASCAR's hinted if you don't pick attendance up at these tracks, changes are coming. And that one was terribly attended. I don't think the All-Star race was very well attended there. So, and it's not a track that NASCAR owns. It's SMI. They could drop it when the agreement's over. Right. So
Texas and Kansas.
I think that's and Bristol dirt. I think Bristol's great. Bristol dirt's terrible. So.
Okay. Same question then. Worst track, CJ.
I agree on Kansas. Not that great. Texas has fallen off for sure. Traditionally, I would say New Hampshire. I'm not a fan of races at New Hampshire. This year's races didn't do anything to sway me. They were a little bit better than past years. But honestly, despite the weather, which is the reason I had it second on my worst races of the year, didn't top Bristol though, but I'll put it as my worst track would be COTA. I like COTA a lot for things like MotoGP, things like Formula One. I don't think it's the right place for NASCAR to be going. I don't think it's the right kind of racing for these types of cars. It just doesn't suit it. We'll see how it goes with the new car. Maybe it'll be a little bit better. But for me, that's just too much of a horsepower handling, more of a horsepower road course. I think with the elevation changes and the blind corners a little bit tighter, a little bit narrower width of a track at Road America plays better into their hands. I think the track is too wide, too open, not enough dangerous spots within COTA to be able to really bring out the best in these cars. To me, it kind of looks like a brick kind of rolling down a hill. It wasn't that exciting.
All right. What about the best track? Is that easy, or is that, do you have like a best? Do you have a clear best track, Eric?
It used to be Atlanta for reasons like CJ said. It was a driver's track. It wasn't like you had 30 cars on the lead lap. It was what NASCAR was made off of. I mean, you had not made off of, but the new modern era in 72 on just strategy plays, tire fall off. You're driving versus the track versus pit strategy versus other cars. I liked Atlanta. Now they're repaving it, so I don't know what that's going to happen. But Atlanta was always a good one. I love the super speedways in the sense of how lottery it is. They're fun. I think that it's one of the higher rated races of the year, the 4 stops on super speedways. And Bristol. I think Bristol is a perfect short track. But I'd say my favorite right now for this season was Atlanta. Just the spring battle was exactly, and even the summer with Kyle and Kurt's battle at the end. I think that's exactly what I like to see out of NASCAR. Not some fluke finish, some fluke restart, just 2 drivers or even more battling it out strategy-wise for a win. That's, to me, that's always been a favorite of mine.
Best track then?
Atlanta is up there for sure. Bristol, obviously, the super speedways, but I'll go a little bit different. It doesn't always produce the best racing, but very much for the same reasons. Eric's talked about it a couple times. Darlington for me.
Okay. Who is the best analyst in the sport? Do we have one?
I like, a lot of people don't like him. I like Kyle Petty because he's not afraid to call anybody out. He actually will tell you how it is.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't like him as an analyst, but if there's one person that doesn't subscribe to the I've got to toe the NASCAR line, I'm going to ask the question that's controversial. It's Kyle Petty.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll put a driver in their place. This guy should have done this, or this guy, he could have said that, but this is what really, as a race car driver, this is what happens. And I like that. I like that he's not afraid to speak his mind and will apologize later. Like he'll tell you what really needs to be said. So I like that.
Well, should he be in the booth then?
No.
No, I like his role how he is. I think in the booth, maybe that tames him out. Yeah.
Worst analyst.
Oh, for me, hands down, Jeff Gordon. He's for as great as he was behind the wheel, man. He gets. It's like he's searching in his head for what he thinks he should be saying versus what is actually happening, and it's almost like he's trying to please people or trying to say what he thinks people are thinking versus actually commentating on the race, giving his own experience. I think there's too much I don't know, maybe he was coached too much throughout his driving days to be a good sponsors person. He's not he doesn't get you inside the race like a veteran championship driver should.
I'd agree. And I was a Gordon fan for all my life. It's just, I feel like too corporate, doesn't actually tell you to me, I don't think he actually gives you what's going on inside the car. Like, I want to have somebody relevant. Like, I would say, I guess go back to your last question, the analyst part, oddly enough, I like Kurt Busch, the way he announces truck races and some of the Xfinity. I feel like I want somebody as an analyst to tell me what these guys are doing in the car, why it's relevant, not just. And plus, Gordon is a Hendrick guy. It's kind of, he's got the bias there. I want somebody to tell me what's going on. I could see what's going on. I don't need you to tell me what I see. I need you to tell me why I'm seeing what I see. And I don't feel like Gordon and Boyer just had that. I don't think they clicked. I just felt like Boyer was the jokester partier guy, and Gordon was just the corporate PR speak guy. But they didn't actually give me info, and I didn't hear the NBC one because I was in the pits, but that's bad too. I feel like for Phoenix, you should know, and this maybe it's just common for CJ and I because we know open wheel is you want to be on pit road when the caution comes out. That's a no-brainer. You don't want where you don't want to be is coming onto pit road when the caution. If you're already in your pit box, that's the best spot you could be because the yellow's out. You've got a free pit stop under yellow, and you're going to cycle ahead. So that's bad. I feel like NBC did a pretty bad job of explaining some scenarios too. I just the perfect booth, I think they're all at fault. I think the perfect booth is a driver who's relevant, who's been in the car, that can tell me why. Don't tell me what I'm seeing. Tell me why what I'm seeing. Tell me what you're feeling in the car. Tell me why this car is loose, why this car is tight, what you're seeing. And like crew chief analysts with him for the strategy call, because I feel like none of them have really done a great job at explaining that to fans.
So you think Kurt Busch then would be a good analyst when he retires?
Yeah, I feel like he did a great job with Fox on the Xfinity coverage when he was in it, and then when he did the truck races, that's why I think they kept him around. He really told you I can tell this car's loose based off of the way his hand placement's on the wheel or what he's about. He really can tell you what's going on. And I feel like that's probably, and he had an opportunity to be, instead of racing next year, to be an announcer. I think Fox Sports really valued him. So that what he did for trucks in this few Xfinity times in the booth, that's what I feel like will help explain to viewers in this sport moving forward.
Okay, and lastly, and then we'll close up with the rest of the weekend at Phoenix is because we're going to talk a lot about this. We've said this for the whole season, but we promise you during the off season we're going to gear up for 2022, and we're going to have a big show and maybe even a series of shows throughout 2022 on how we think NASCAR should improve. The list is long, so if you had to. I know it's hard, but CJ, if you had to, just come up with one thing that you would improve in the sport. They said, CJ, here's your chance. You only get one. It's like a wish, an Aladdin wish. You get one of them. What's your wish to make NASCAR better?
Like I said, mine was going to be politicization because, and I'll change it a little bit to consistency on calls. That genuinely was going to be my answer for this question, but Kyle Busch got out of the car at Martinsville, graded himself an F, said that he would go down and beat the bleep out of Keselowski, and said it was a bleep move They don't care that he threatened physical violence to Keselowski. That's fine. Oh yeah, go ahead. No mention of that. But he's got to go do sensitivity training for the second word that he said, which, by the way, you've got flame retardant overalls on. He used the proper word for something, and that's what he's got to go get sensitivity training for. Haley Deegan had to go get sensitivity training for that. So politicization was mine, but I'm going to go with consistency, because the consistency just in that example alone is not there. They say they want it to be a boys go at it, have at it. We want drivers to be aggressive. We want it to be winning is everything. But every single decision that they make during the race, afterward, how they set up the schedule, how they set up the points, how they set up the knockout rounds, all that good stuff, none of it actually supports that. So I think they need some consistency in their direction and the decisions that they make. And you know what? I'll even narrow it down further. Let's just make it consistency on the track during the race, since we want it to be during the race. If you're going to call a caution because of debris, don't wait till everybody cycles through to be able to call the caution for debris. Call the damn caution for debris when you see the debris. Bring some consistency so that we know what to expect. That's what I'll say.
I did not expect that, but like I said, we've got hundreds of different complaints. So, Eric,
I like it. I'll go different. I'll go noon starts. Let's move these start times back.
My number two. That was my number two.
You said what I was thinking. We just flipped it. So there we go. Yeah. Those are me and CJ's top two. They're right there. Yeah, I am so sick of the 3 o'clock starts and them not listening to fans saying it helps West Coast, and West Coast would rather have earlier starts too. So yeah, noon or 1 o'clock at the latest. Let's move it back up. Let's get these races over, and we have the rest of the night for these storylines, because, prime example, I'm finishing all my work at Phoenix and I'm getting done. I'm about to hit submit, about to turn my laptop off. I'm like, all right, it is about 8:30. It's 11:30 Eastern. And it's like, look how late your champion was crowned. And all these stories aren't getting out till these fans on the East Coast are going to go to bed. You're not going to see any of this.
That's why every time you go to a track, it's hard for us to do anything, because it's so late in the day. It's like, I want to go to bed. I don't want to do a show. I want to do a show at 6 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, so it's terrible.
It's terrible for that. And I don't see the viewership. I think it'd be even higher. I think you're losing a lot of people because, if you're gaining the West Coast, why is the list of top cities watching racing not in the West Coast? They're not holding their weight out there. They don't. If you're catering to them, why are their cities not more higher up on the top 10 rankings of cities for viewership in a season? And they're not even in the West Coast. It's all East Coast cities. So
probably improve if they actually had an opportunity to get up and watch it in the morning.
It would. That's what they want. And it just makes it awkward. And it closes your window of opportunity if it rains. I mean, there's too many problems starting late in the afternoon when you're talking, like Ben Rhodes said, we're looking at less night races, more Sunday afternoon races, like NASCAR was brought in on. Your church and NASCAR is what he's saying. Well, you have church, and then you can get a 3-hour nap, lunch, and then might as well eat dinner with your NASCAR. It's like, come on, you're on your way there. Let's just fully go there.
Especially, you should be cognizant of what else is on. Okay, now if you're going to tell me that, well, look, there's just so much stuff on we're competing with early on in the day, we have to do it, then I would be, all right, maybe I'm okay with that. But I'm sitting here all day long, and I got nothing to watch. It's like, I got to wait till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You could have the attention of everybody, including the West Coast, if you started at 12 o'clock. You'd have everybody's attention.
Yep. Especially the summer. People have cookouts. People have pool parties. You can have the race on in the afternoon or on the radio, just something. But if you do it late in the afternoon, most people are done.
They're done with their outdoor activities. Yes.
Yeah, they're coming in and they're not gonna sit around for 3 hours and watch a race after that. They'll just catch it later. And
by the way, I like the idea of putting it back to back with some of the other series. Like whenever they do IndyCar, NASCAR, what a great idea. I mean, why don't they figure out how to?
Year?
Yeah.
None.
Really?
It worked this year. They're not doing any next year. And it's like, again, another loss. Yeah, none on the same day with IndyCar.
And then, and again, I've more than enough things in my to get off my chest, but I'll just say in the lines of that, the ability that if it is going to rain, because this is a pet peeve of all the time, move the race up. I don't care if it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Get it on the race so it's over by the end, by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock before the rain comes in. Because if golf can do it, you can do it. So there's no excuse for them to not move the races up if rain is going to come in the afternoon. That would be one thing to go along with scheduling and things of that nature. Okay, finally, big win for Mr. O for 207. Daniel Hemrick. That was actually that was the exciting race that we all wish we had in the Cup Series. That was the finish we would have liked to have had. That kind of banging up against each other, at the end when it looked like he was not going to have a chance to. I mean, he's behind him, and in the last lap, it didn't look like he was going to have a chance, and it was a great finish. Yet there was a little bit of controversy because of AJ Dillon spinning out and causing a caution.
Yeah, Allmendinger.
Allmendinger
was. Yeah, that was. It wasn't egregious. It could look that way. I thought it was when he did it, and then after hearing them all talk, he felt terrible. That was not just a bad handling car, and Cindric had it won until then, and then Hemrick just right there on that restart and overtime. It just you could just feel the intensity in the pits. I watched the end of it down there, and you could just feel it. And to do the move to cleanly get him, he revved him, but like Cindric said, that was a clean move. He didn't wreck me. It's as long as you don't wreck somebody, it's clean. And because I know most people, if they were 0 for 207 and you had the leader in sight, and you can win your first race in a championship, you're probably going to not just rub them too clean. Yeah. You're going to do everything you can to win it. And so, yeah, it was a perfect ending to that race, and it just goes to show anybody can win a championship. Anybody. I mean, he was 207 races he lost, and he was a great story that he gave afterwards about how he's even still in the sport, about how a friend of his when he was little gave him money, or he's a teenager, to race like Legends cars and stuff like that to get his attention, and then kept funding him, got him to NASCAR. He did good, but not great. Never won a championship, but he's always got the championship 4 in trucks and Xfinity. Gets moved up the Cup, and 1 year wins Rookie of the Year, but because Tyler Reddick won 2 straight championships, one of the last one was Childress, and he said, I'm going Cup racing with you or somebody else. And Childress isn't going to fire his grandson, Austin Dillon. Well, that cost him a ride, despite being Rookie of the Year. And then he had nothing to do. He goes to the Junior Motorsports in Xfinity part-time. Just bad luck in the season. And he thought his career was over. He thought it was, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm at a golf outing with people from Poppy Bank, which is his sponsor. And the guy, they hit it off. The guy calls Joe Gibbs. He's like, my life, my future is hanging on the balance of this phone call that this guy's having at this golf outing. He comes back and says, hey, want to go full-time racing Xfinity with a good team next year? And of course he's like, yeah. And for a guy that has never won a race in his NASCAR life, his last win was like 2012 or 2013 in like a Legends car, to take the deal that was offered, if he didn't finish in the top 5, he didn't get paid. Not a single paycheck. He just had a baby. He got married not too long ago. I can only imagine the insurance cost of a race car driver, the race. And for you to take a job knowing I've never won a race before, and the only way I get paid is if I get a top 5, was a gutsy move. And then he turns it into a championship winning season. So I thought that was a good storyline, a good feel-good storyline. For a guy, he's a nice guy to now get his championship. And, oh, by the way, he's moving teams again next year. He's going to colleague racing. So, yeah, it was a good race, good moment. To me, one of the finer moments of the weekend, just to see something like that happen.
Yep. And we will conclude with the Truck Series. And not that the race was the big story, but the press conference was really, that took the cake. But leading up to the press conference, what CJ, what happened in the Truck Series this season as far as the playoffs, the championship, with Rhodes winning it all?
Well, it was kind of unexpected, I would say. John Hunter Nemechek coming to the Truck.
He was the favorite.
Was his favorite. Picked up 5 wins on the season. I think you got another story being your veterans like Matt Crafton. He made it all the way to the Final Four, but wasn't able to get a win. I think you had some surprise winners throughout the year. You get to the finale and you got a track where somebody like Eric correctly said, Zane Smith is actually very good at. Matt Crafton could come in and win at. John Hunter Nemechek, I would argue, is the favorite and should come in and win the championship. Then you end up getting some long shot like Ben Rhodes, who's arguably not really a long shot, obviously in the Final Four, but probably not your top pick of those 4 heading into the weekend. And he celebrated right after victory lane, and then headed over to the press conference, which I think you're going to play for us.
Yeah, well, let's definitely cue that up, because this was something that you just don't hear very often at a press conference, which is, I think, look, it's a good thing. Let's check it out. Here it is. We're just going to play 20 seconds. This is the open.
Bud, let me say something here. Libations are good. Championship's awesome. And this is going to be the weirdest press conference ever. You know what? Here's what I got to say. What was the question? So, okay, wait a minute. I know what the question was. It was...
you could watch this whole thing over and over again based on it was almost like it was scripted. It was so good how he just came out and said what he said. And then he forgets the question. And he's got his Bud Light there. And it's if this would have been in the Cup Series, just imagine. But these are the guys, Gragson in the Xfinity Series and Rhodes now in the Truck Series. These are the guys that we almost wish we had, Eric, in the Cup Series.
For sure. This is what NASCAR fans want. I mean, they want the personality. It's like they get to the Cup Series and it's vanilla. This is what NASCAR, your old 80s, 70s, 80s, early 90s drivers would do. I mean, they're a person. You see, they're a person outside the race car. And I think any one of us, if you drink alcohol in moderation, we're not going to, we won't promote that. But if you just want a championship, I'm going to be like him. I'll be honest. Or if I want to race, the fans, if I'm climbing a fence, is going to offer me to shotgun a beer, I'm going to be happy and probably oblige. It's like, let's see some of this. I know it's not great PR speak to have your driver that just won a championship completely shit-faced drunk in a press conference, but that's great for a storyline. I mean, that gave him attention. So I like it. I think he's a good driver. He's a good guy, and that's what NASCAR needs, and that's the guys he wants at the top. But I'd be curious CJ's opinion on this, because Ben Rhodes is only 24, Hemrick's 30. They just won championships. They're both happy, it seems like, in their respective series. But what's their path to move up? Is this the time for them? That Hemrick, I know, has got colleague next year, but they're not getting any younger. We got the youth wave coming. Ben Rhodes feels like he's been around forever. It was his 8th year in the series. He's only 24, though. He kept talking in this drunken, stupid press conference. He's good with Thor Sport. He liked to stay there. This is a home. But he is only 24. If you want to be a Cup driver, if you don't do it soon, the door's going to close. Hemrick's now a champion. That door could close here soon. So do they move up? Is this that you bet on yourself now? Or do you make a nice career in the lower series?
No, I think both of them, it's a good question. I think both of them have got to stay. I think when you're looking at the future of Cup, you're looking at guys like Noah Gragson, who are that age, but are making the impression at the top on the one level below. Probably the only other one I would say that might have a path upward just based on the success that he had in going down would be John Hunter Nemechek. But even still, I think you got to open the door for the guys like Gragson, Cindric, Hemrick's been around. He had his chance. I think you make your nice I think you make your nice environment around yourself with where you're successful. You kind of milk that till it's good. If you get another chance and it's the right chance, great. But don't make another chance, trying to force one like you did last time that didn't work out.
How much can you make at both series if you're a top driver? How much can you pull in a year?
I'd say probably low six figures.
Yeah.
I mean, there's purses.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Nothing
at all.
You've got a respectable, successful career.
Yeah.
You can still be a Hall of Famer. There's nothing wrong with that. Learn your lessons. Don't try to force something that's not going to be. Otherwise, you end up,
on the street.
In a word.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So I think the future is very bright. I agree with Eric. I think this is more of what the sport needs, but I think it's going to come from the guys like the Cindrics, the Gregsons, etc.
It's just like the Harrison Burtons and those guys they're like Ty Gibbs, like they're moving up and it's getting younger. And the Cup rides, I feel like the top teams they're going to be set for like Hendrick, all four guys are 28 and younger. I mean, Penske, they've got Logano, Blaney, and now Cindric with Harrison Burton with Wood Brothers, and Gibbs is a little bit older, but they got Ty Gibbs and other guys, and I think John Hunter will end up being fit in that mix. Where do these guys go? And that's where it's like, it's hard. It's either you're going to be a lifelong truck driver or an Xfinity driver, and you're never going to move up to get the fame and attention and the millions that you could in a Cup guy, or you got to make the move here within the next year or two because that championship eventually somebody else is going to win. Which direction do you go? It's like you're kind of stuck in a spot. At least with you're at now, you're a championship driver with the team you're in. But with only 24, Ben Rhodes moved to North Carolina to want to be a Cup driver. And now he moved back to Kentucky because Thor Sports in Ohio, because that's where he's from. And it's like either you're going to make it now or you're not. Now it's the time. Do you spend 10 years as a truck driver, or how do you move up when there's not a lot of rides to move up into? It's when you're a champion that opens up.
I think that eventually, and I think this is really good that you have all these young drivers in NASCAR now I actually think it's a good thing that they're blocking some of these guys because first of all, it makes it better as far as the competition. Because if the young guys aren't good, then more young guys will take their place. And if they can't take the place, then that means those young guys are doing really well at Cup, which is good for us. I also think it's good for both the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series if there's continuity there. Build yourself a resume there. Build yourself a fan base there. There's nothing wrong with that. That would make the Xfinity Series more popular. There's nothing wrong with having 4 or 5 drivers that just never make it at the Cup Series be almost like legends in this Xfinity Series or the Truck Series. I think that's good for all 3 series across the board, and maybe this is the perfect time for that to happen because of all the young drivers in Cup Series that are blocking their path. So I can only see it as a good
eventually
thing.
Yeah, because Hemrick's coming back. Allmendinger's not going to – I don't think there's a path for him to be a full-time Cup driver anymore because Kaulig obviously went with Justin Haley. Justin Allgaier's not going anywhere. I think that door's shut. So you're going to have some of these veterans. Like it used to be in the 90s, like your Randy LaJoyes, your Joe Nemecheks, your David and Jeff Greens. Like they were that good niche in the Busch Series. And the trucks were like Jack Sprague and Todd Bodine and Skinner and those type of guys that I think we're getting back to that because there's not a lot of room for these guys to move up. And like you said, it puts more attention on that series because it's not just a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids still learning, trying to accomplish something. So I think but for those kids, if you want to move up, not the kids like these guys that are a rightful age of 24 that they're calling an old vet. It's like, you're either moving up or you're stuck. If you don't move up quick, you're going to be stuck. So I don't know what their future plans hold, if that's an aspiration. I mean, everybody wants to be at the top of the sport,
sure,
which should be the Cup Series, but you also don't, like John Hunter did last year, go to a team you're not going to finish better than 25th most races, and then you're stuck and you have nowhere to go back down. So it's a slippery slope of which to do, but it's an interesting topic for those guys.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for the 2021 season. We will talk again on the air probably in 2022. Not sure we'll make it by the end of the year. What are they going to have, some awards show stuff next week or something?
That's the first
next
week
month?
Of yeah, like first week of December.
Was that Vegas?
Nashville.
Okay. Well, but we are definitely, as I mentioned, we're going to have different type of programming format that we're going to continue to obviously have the same shows that we produce and have produced over the last couple of seasons, but we're going to up the ante on some of our coverage, especially on site with Eric being on site. And that's both for NASCAR and the IndyCar series as well. So
correct. Yep.
A lot we're working on there, and it should be a lot of fun. And we just keep our fingers crossed that the new car will make the sport better and the racing better. We can only hope, right? Because it could make it worse. I don't know. Could it make it worse?
It could. We don't know.
Oh my goodness gracious! If it makes it worse, we're in trouble.
Yes, because it's not enough testing on it yet, and I've heard some teams are waiting to sell all their stuff off yet, just in case.
All right. So for fans, what's the next thing then? What should they be looking forward to?
Next gen testing, I'd say.
When's that?
Probably the next week. They are actually. I think this week they're gonna. Fans aren't allowed at this one, but the dirt they're gonna test on dirt, see how the car reacts on dirt. I think they're doing another Charlotte closed door oval test, and then next week they're going back to Charlotte Oval again. Next month they're out in Phoenix. January's Daytona. So
are you able to go to any of the tests?
I don't know. It depends. I don't. Sometimes they've just a handful of people. I've heard two different ways. It's going to be all cars are open to come test, and then I also heard it may only be 3. So if it's 3 cars, I'm not going to probably risk.
All right.
Yeah, like 1 each from manufacturer. So I haven't heard a guaranteed plan on what they're doing.
And what are you going to be covering?
Just off-season stuff as it comes in, the silly season. I don't know mostly NASCAR silly season's done. I mean, the only other thing really big left to announce would be if 2311 gets a charter. Almirola confirmed it, Stuart Haas. But other than that, most of it's pretty status quo from here until previews and stuff closer to time, February.
And CJ, is that it for RotoWire for you until 2022?
That's it for me until February when we start ramping up for the Clash in Daytona.
All right, guys. It was fun as always, entertaining. Great job. Obviously, couldn't do it without you, so I really do appreciate all the time and effort and sacrifice you put into making this a really good show for the viewers, and it's only going to get better. So, look, there's a new member of the family too this year for Eric. So.
Yep, there is. Yep, and hopefully the last.
Yeah,
hopefully everybody stays
no more.
Safe and get 3, yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you more than likely in 2022 on the air.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Take care.